inches to go. To Bader. 17 to 14. Cowboys out in front. Starr begins the count. Takes the snap. He's got the quarterback sneak, and he's into the touchdown, and the Packers are out in front. And the Green Bay Packers are going to be world champions.
Set up for the Packers, and Favre back to throw his first one. Going deep. Has a man open. Andre Rison does the dance in, and Favre got settled down in a hurry.
That is the way to settle down.
Got hit there, 3rd and 1. Jordy Nelson, touchdown, Green Bay.
The title is back in town. The Green Bay Packers are world champions of football.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome to another rendition of the Titletown Lounge podcast. It is yet again another Victory Wednesday. We're happy to have you. I, of course, am your fearless leader, Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. This handsome devil to my right is Brandon. You can find him on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. And, of course, the podcast page on Twitter at Titletown Lounge. We are pleased to bring you yet again another Victory Wednesday. It is 6 in a row. 6-1 Green Bay Packers. It was a weird victory, but as they say, there is no bad victories. A W is a W, but there is a lot to dive into after that Sunday victory against the Washington football team. Brandon, it was a game where, had you told me last Wednesday that the Packers defense would give up 480 or 470 yards and 25 first downs, I would have agreed with you when you said that it was looking like a trap game. I would have been like, oh man, there's no way they win this game with the 400 and some odd yards they gave up. But the story of that game was the defense, and especially in the second half. I mean, they had 3 turnovers on downs. They had a red zone interception. They had the fumble that led to the touchdown to start the second half. It was a weird game, to say the least. What did you think?
Remember last week? Hold on, let me start up. Thank you, everybody that is tuning in. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, thank you guys so much. It is such an honor and privilege to be here talking about the Packers with you. I hope everyone out there is doing well. When I was on the show last week, Rhino, and then even for one of my articles for Dairyland Express, I said that the possibility of a trap game is there. Like, this Washington team is not a joke. And I know they get laughed at. They're the Washington football team. Dan Snyder is in the news for all the wrong things in the world. But they're still really good. Football. Yeah. But they're still really good up front. And that's where it starts for me. Like you, I'm a guy with the trenches. I like the big uglies up front. And Washington's front four, you could put them up against anybody in the NFL and they will compete. You talk about Chase Young, second-year stud out of Ohio State there, just dominates guys. Jonathan Allen out of Alabama, as you know, as an Alabama fan, a monster. Montez Sweat, who I really, really wanted coming out of the 19 draft. I think that was the year that was Rashawn Gary's draft as well. I really liked Montez Sweat. And then James Ioannidis, who's really good. They were really good. And that was why I thought it could be a trap game, because if they could control the line of scrimmage, in which the Packers, on the flip side of things, on the offensive line, are struggling. They're hurt, Another suboptimal game for Royce Newman. Another bad game for Lucas Patrick. Wasn't very clean all game, really at all. They ran for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined for 25 yards on 9 carries.
On 9 carries, yeah.
It was awful game from the both of them. And then you look at the passing aspect of the game, and they really didn't – Aaron Rodgers really didn't have a clean pocket for most of that game. There's a handful of plays. You saw it early in that game. And I know they scored a touchdown on their first drive, but it was on 4th down, 4th and 3, and he was scrambling to his right, and he found Devontae across his body. It was just – it had a feel of those games where if Taylor Heineke could make some plays, and he did make some big plays, Washington was going to have a chance, and they were right there. That was a 1-score game for too long for comfort on my end.
The defense did come up very huge, especially in the red zone. They got rid of their red zone woes, if you want to call them. We're going to touch on the defense here in a second. We'll touch on the offense first, just because there isn't really a whole lot to talk about with the offense in this game. Aaron Rodgers looked like MVP Aaron Rodgers. He had a very efficient game, completed over 70% of his passes, 3 touchdowns. The one thing I do want to touch on with Rodgers, that touchdown pass to Davante Adams on that first drive, I mean, that is an otherworldly play. And I was watching it and I'm thinking, man, if that was Patrick Mahomes, social media would be going nuts. You would see a post from every single page there is, ESPN, NFL Network, CBS, Fox, NBC, everyone would be blowing up Twitter and Facebook with that play. But that was another day in Aaron Rodgers' life, was that play. I mean, he's throwing across the grain, across his body on one foot to Davante Adams while he's on the run for the touchdown. I mean, that's why Rodgers, to me, to this day, is still the best to do it in the NFL, because he makes those plays look routine. And they're not talked about very often. They're not all over SportsCenter. They're not all over NFL Network. But it was a very good game for Aaron Rodgers, very efficient. The one big question mark that I had in this game was, why did your elite backfield, and I'm ready to call them elite at this point after the last 3-4 games they had going into Sunday, why did your running back duo have 9 carries? I understand that Washington has a very physical front, a very decent front 8, a very elite front 4. Why did they only get 9 carries? That's something that's just mind-boggling to me, especially in a game where you should have controlled the clock. You had Tyler Heineke running all over the field. He had 95 yards rushing, which was a shock to me. 9 carries is a huge question mark to me, and I don't understand why. Maybe you can explain it to me.
And I wrote about it as well in my Tuesday article. I don't know. I don't know what the game plan was. It's so unlike Matt LaFleur to be pass heavy on one side, of the aspect between running and throwing. It just seems that very uncharacteristic of how he orchestrates a game plan. And I was puzzled. Like, I was sitting down with my dad in the basement. We're watching, and I'm like, why are they not running the ball? Like, and the running lanes weren't totally there. I get it, but patience. You see that happen with Aaron Jones all the time. It's 3 or 4 yards here, 3 or 4 yards here. Third quarter, 75-yard touchdown. You see it all the time. So I thought Matt LaFleur, I thought Nathaniel Hackett, I think they just got away from the running game. They never really established it. You could tell their patience wasn't there. And
yeah,
here's what my theory is, for all those conspiracy theorists out there, I guess, if you want to say, we're going to see a lot of those two tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it for our preview against Arizona. But that's my assumption, is that they probably looked at, Matt LaFleur, that is, and Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, and they're like, okay, Washington has the worst pass defense in the NFL. They've given up the most points as a whole, as a defensive whole for the, entirety of the year thus far. So they probably thought they could get away with throwing the ball more times than they should have. In doing so, they would have saved the legs and the bodies of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon for Thursday. That's what my assumption is. I know Matt LaFleur, didn't really get into specifics at his press conferences Sunday and then following on Monday. But it was puzzling, to say the least. I mean, they were efficient. I mean, they were 50% on third downs. They were 100% on fourth downs. They only had to attempt that 1 4th and 3 on the first drive. But my only explanation for it is just that they didn't care to run, because that's who they're going to depend on come Thursday. Now, obviously that is more amplified now because of the news of Davante Adams and Allen Lazard. But it's assumption that Matt LaFleur talked about it yesterday. Actually, he said they were planning for Arizona from last week. So I don't know. My guess is as good as yours. I'm assuming they were just looking at the bigger picture, saying we're going to need these guys on Thursday, and we could probably get away with doing whatever against Washington. And that proved to be true.
And I mean, if that's the case, it worked out in their favor. Obviously, I mean, it was a 24-10 victory for the Packers on Sunday. It worked out in their favor, but I don't like the idea of preparing for a future opponent when you have a decent opponent coming up, that week. Even if Washington was 2-4 going into that game, they still have a very decent defense, a very strong defensive front. I don't like the concept of, hey, we got Washington, but let's game plan around Washington thinking of Arizona. I'm just not the biggest fan of that.
No, and I don't know if they are either, to be honest with you. I think they probably look at it as like, well, Thursday night football, there's two things with Thursday night football. Either play the teams that are coming off of bye weeks on Thursday night, or don't play them at all. And then the NFL will never not go, we'll go away from that because it makes too much money. I don't know if you saw Mark Stein, I think he's with ESPN. I don't know if he used to be with ESPN, but he tweeted out the NBA had stopped doing NBA Thursday night on TNT with Shaq and Kenny and Charles because they were in direct competition with the NFL. The NFL is never going to go away from Thursday night. So the coaches are probably not a fan of game planning as well, like you said, because you can be beaten on any Sunday. We saw it in week 1. If you watch the Saints on Monday night and you're looking at the Packers, like how did you lose to that team? Like I was, you got to take
that was an ugly game. That was an ugly game.
Super boring. But you got to take every opponent serious. And the Packers probably would have liked to, and I think they did to a certain extent, but they also realized it's a pretty darn good opponent on Thursday night that they got to get ready for, and they don't have much time. The schedule makers didn't do Green Bay any favors with this matchup. I mean, you're talking about traveling 5 hours on a plane cross country after you just got done playing 3 days ago. Is just it's tough.
It is pretty tough. But they did handle Washington. I'm not going to say they beat them up, but they did handle Washington the way they should have handled Washington. The one thing that I did like the most about this game, Aaron Rodgers did start spreading the ball around. I mean, I know a lot of people have complained about him only targeting Davante Adams. Now, I'm not going to say he only targets him, but he has been targeting him quite a bit. But it was good to see that he spread the ball around to not just Adams, but Tanyan had 63 yards receiving. Lazard had 60 yards receiving. Three different guys caught a touchdown. He had targets all across the board. Randall Cobb had 3 targets. Big dog Mercedes Lewis with probably one of the best moves of his entire career. That spin move that led to the first down was a pretty good move by him. But it was good to see him finally spread the ball around. And I wonder, that's something we're going to need Thursday, which we'll get into Thursday. But going forward with a healthy team, is this something that we can expect out of the Packers offense going forward? Maybe a little bit more spread offense and not just focusing on Davante only.
If you're asking the question, directly, the answer is yes, because that's how the LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay offense is meant to be. If you look at Jimmy Garoppolo when he went to the Super Bowl, you look at Jared Goff when he went to the Super Bowl under the same system, there was 4 targets here, 3 targets there, 5 targets. It was all over the field. Now, most people are like, okay, well, you're looking at Davante too much. If you watch just Davante, he's open almost every time. So I understand that you got to spread it, and I agree with it. The only blemish I have with it is that Rodgers is waiting too long, in my opinion.
Yes,
you're working with, when you had Josh Myers, you had 2 rookies on the offensive line, and then you're working with Yosh Nijman for 3 games over at left tackle. Now, obviously, Elton Jenkins is back, and you would imagine David Bakhtiari is probably back against the Kansas City Chiefs. If he's not back tomorrow, I don't think he's going to be back tomorrow. But so you're looking at, a kind of a, glued together offensive line, so to speak, for pieces. So he's holding onto the ball a lot. He's not really doing a lot of favors to his offensive line. Lucas Patrick was having a rough stretch of games. But Davante Adams is open, and that's why he's looking at him so much. You saw it against Washington. Allen Lazard is pretty darn good himself, and obviously he's going to be out tomorrow. 5 catches for 60 yards. You looked at Mercedes Lewis. We've kind of seen what Mercedes Lewis can do in the passing game. You remember when Mercedes first came out of UCLA? He was such a receiving threat. Like he kind of, I don't want to say he revolutionized the receiving tight end because that was probably Shannon Sharp back in the day, but he was like that next dude, like that 6'5", 6'6", however tall he is, big body.
Well, it was the size, but he had pretty decent speed when he first came into the league.
He did. So and you see him catching the ball, and nobody wants to tackle that dude. I mean,
oh God, no.
Just a monster. But in the offense, it's supposed to be a spread. The ball is supposed to be out of Aaron Rodgers' hands within 2 seconds. We're not seeing a whole lot of that. Like Aaron Rodgers said to Pam Oliver after the game, they're just not there yet. And they're 6-1, and that's scary. If you're an opposing fan of Green Bay, or down the road going to be an opponent of the Green Bay Packers, that's a scary team that isn't clicking yet. That's 6-1, have won 6 straight, and they have probably been the most fractured team as far as injuries by far in the NFL. Not even a debate.
And to touch on what you were speaking on a couple of minutes ago, Rodgers getting the ball out of his hands quick. The best game that he's probably had so far this season, a lot of people look at the Lions game. In my opinion, the best game he's had this year was against the Niners, when he was getting the ball out of his hand in literally 2 seconds. It was the fastest release time he had in his entire career.
Yep.
And he shredded the 49ers defense apart. And this was a defense that we were worried about going into that matchup on Sunday Night Football. This is a defense that we thought was going to hand the asses to the Packers. So getting the ball out of his hand as quick as possible is key, especially in this offense. But they do have guys open. Devontae is open. Lazard is getting open. But that's neither here nor there. The offense, as far as the passing game is concerned, played efficient. You would like to see a little bit more running out of them, but
what you're seeing
points is 24 points.
What you're seeing too, and to go back onto your comment about Patrick Mahomes and his struggles, if you look back to when Aaron Rodgers struggled the most in his career, and there has been times where he has struggled, obviously, in 2017 going into 2018, with the end of the McCarthy.
2015 is probably his worst year.
Yeah, and you look at it, probably was. I think it was actually. He holds onto the ball and he's looking for that home run shot. And you're seeing it in Patrick Mahomes. And I know this isn't a Mahomes podcast or Kansas City, but those are the things you're looking at. Quarterbacks that are used to making those home run type of plays, you're seeing them constantly look for it. And not saying Aaron Rodgers is looking for it this year, but this year has a little bit of a 2019 feel to it, where they're 2019, first year Matt LaFleur's offense. They're still trying to figure things out. It's a brand new system, but it kind of has a feel to that on the offensive side of the ball. It hasn't been fluid at all. My hope, my assumption, my guess, once that running game becomes a permanent, established part of that offense, then you'll see the passing game get spread wide open.
The only difference I would make as far as Rodgers is concerned this year, he is playing a lot more efficiently. Back in 2017 into 2018, 2019, he wasn't playing as efficiently as he is now. I mean, he's not having the numbers he was having last year in his MVP season, but he is playing efficiently. He's got the completion percentage that's up there. His yards per attempt are up there, and he's not making the forced throws or the bad throws that he made in those off years.
Good point.
Moving on to the defense, and I spoke about this in the opener of the show. Like I said, 450 yards, whatever it was, 450, 430, whatever it was, and 25 first downs. There's no way, had you told me that going into this game, that I thought they would have won by 14 points even at all. But for the first time this season, for the first time in probably about 8 or 9 games, the red zone defense stepped up huge. They had the drive where Heineke thought he had the rushing touchdown. He even did the Lambeau leap. I don't know where he gets the audacity doing that, but he did the Lambeau leap, and it turned out that his knee was. He did grow up a Packers fan, but he's not a Packer now, so don't do it. But his knee was down by contact, and on the very next play, they forced a fumble, which I thought was the play of the game, forcing that fumble right there on the goal line. They had 3 turnovers on down inside the 15. They had 3 turnovers inside the 15. 2 of them were on downs. One of them was a red zone interception. That was Shannon Sullivan, wasn't it?
Yep.
They had the red zone interception.
Yep. 3-9.
They had the other fumble as well. What did you think about the defense in this game? Giving up only 10 points. They did give up the yards, but as Rodgers said in his press conference, it's an opportunistic defense, and that's one you can win with.
I'll tell you right now, if they get close to being 100% healthy, and I know that's a big if. That is, obviously I don't think Za'Darius is probably coming back this year, but outside of Za'Darius, Jair has a possibility to come back. Matt LaFleur mentioned it the other day at his press conference that they think he's going to return at some point. They just don't know when.
Yeah.
You're looking at a top 5 defense. I mean, it's just simple as that. You just are. They're in the top 10. I think they're in the top half of defense.
They're 6th right now in yards allowed.
You're looking at a top 5 defense if and when you can get close to being healthy. Eric Stokes is beyond where I thought he would be at this point in the season. You talk about 7 games into the season, and he's right now was pushed in because of injury to your number 1 corner, and he has lived up to those expectations of a first-round draft pick. Now I know, Terry McLaurin burned him, but he didn't burn him. I guess I got to correct myself. He didn't burn him. Eric Stokes was right there to make a play. He just his hand was right there. I mean, if he moves his hand down 3 inches. The one knock on Eric Stokes coming out of Georgia was his ball skills, and you can kind of tell he reminds me of a young Jair Alexander. He's there. He never gets completely burnt on a route or a play. He's always there to make a play. It's just whether or not those turn into pass breakups and interceptions. Hopefully down the road it does. But the defenses, they're really good, man. And Brian Gutekunst, we talked about it in the offseason with Aaron Rodgers. He gets a lot of criticism. He continues to improve his roster during the season, in the offseason, during training camp. I mean, he does adding Whitney Merciless in the middle of the season. That's absolutely huge. That's a guy who has 57 sacks in his career. That's not just some guy, no offense, no knock. That's not a Jonathan Garvin coming off the street. That's a proven pass rusher that was in a horrible organization that is now, excited and motivated to be with a Super Bowl contender. This defense is really good. And I know a lot of us rode Joe Barry after week 1. We wrote him off. We're like, okay, here we go. It looks like Washington. It looks like Detroit when he was there. It looks nothing like that. And you heard there was 2 things that really stuck out to me. Number 1 was Devondre Campbell's comments, talking about, he goes, and I'm paraphrasing Packers linebacker Devondre Campbell. He says, I'm a linebacker and I get to be a linebacker in this defense. Now that means 2 things. Number 1, he hasn't had that throughout his career. And number 2, he's loving it and doing what he is supposed to be doing. Yes. And then the second thing was, I believe it was Adrian Amos. He said the communication is so much easier. And if you look at the Packers defense this year, and there's going to be plays, I know the Bears had him burnt on one play, but Justin Fields couldn't find Allen Robinson. There's not ever a play where the communication or the coverage is blown. Like there's not
outside of King.
Outside of Will, but he got burned. He got beat. But as far as like an assignment portion of it, it's not really there this year. The communication has been better, and I could be mistaken. I thought it was Adrian Amos that mentioned it. But the communication has been there. And props to Joe Barry, props to, Jerry Gray, like these guys, they've, it just seems to be a better defense. And like you said, those plays, Sunday was irritating because they probably should have had, 3 fumbles on one drive that they should have picked up. I still don't know how Darnell Savage didn't scoop up that one down there in the red zone. But it didn't matter. They didn't score anyway. But I'm really excited for this defense because look, that's the other thing. They've never been at full strength this year. They've never even been real close to being at full strength. Like your dad just said, Dean Lowry has been coming to play. Now, do you find it? Let me ask you a question. Do you find it strange, or whatever the adjective you want to use, that Kenny Clark is having the best start of his career and Dean Lowry is having the best season of his career under Joe Barry? That tells you a little bit something that may have not have been told you under Mike Pettin.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you got guys that we were questioning on whether or not they were going to be able to perform. Dean Lowry, we talked about Dean Lowry before the season, and even into week 1 and 2, why is he even on the roster? Then now all of a sudden you got Dean Lowry making clutch sacks and picking up fumbles.
Yep.
And the only explanation you have is Joe Barry. And I want to move back to Eric Stokes real quick because you made a couple good points about him. I believe Eric Stokes is on the brink of being an elite cornerback. If you look at his gameplay, the plays that he has given up, he's within inches of making a defensive effort. I mean, that touchdown pass on the opening drive for Washington, he's literally this close to batting that down, and that's not a touchdown. And the difference between him and King is King was burnt by yards. King had separation.
Multiple,
on his
plural.
Yes, King had separation on his touchdowns that he allowed. Eric Stokes, the couple touchdowns that he's given up this year, he is literally right there. In his hand is within a mustache hair of batting that ball down, and that's not a completion. That's the same thing that you saw with Jair Alexander with his rookie year. He was making plays. He was on his guy. He was on the ball, and he was within inches of making that play. That's the difference between an elite cornerback and a Kevin King-style cornerback. Eric Stokes is going to be the real deal. So if they can lock up, we've talked about this before, if they can lock up Jair Alexander long-term, they're going to have one of the best secondaries in football for years to come. Now, when it comes to guys like Kenny Clark and Dean Lowry, and even Devondre Campbell, he was not a household name until literally week 3 or 4. These are guys that are making plays and becoming household names. And I have to, at this point, I have to give credit to Joe Barry. Even into week 3, I was questioning what was going on with this defense. The injuries that they have and the fact that they're still 6th in yards allowed and I believe 7th or 8th in points allowed, even after a 38-point contest week 1, there's no other place you could point the finger. This isn't a Mike Pettin defense. This is a Joe Barry defense, and he's getting results. I mean, could you imagine what this defense would be doing right now if it were at full strength, if you had Jair Alexander, if you had Zadarius Smith, if Preston Smith was 100% healthy? I mean, you could be looking at a top 3, maybe even the number 1 defense in the league. I mean, the guy is getting results with 3rd-string players. So, yeah, I have to give all the credit to Joe Barry. I mean, this is his defense, and he's producing with it.
Yeah, and when you look at, for people that, may not understand, and it's totally fine. Shout out to Bernard. He's over on YouTube, drops a comment. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you look at that defense, like you said, you're not wrong right now. Everything you said, you're 100% right. If you look at it and you flip it around, you want to play the compare game for those that don't understand how great of a job Joe Barry is. Take Davante Adams, and I know he's probably not playing tomorrow, and we're going to see what that's like. Take Davante Adams off that offense. Yep. Take Robert Tonyan off that offense. That's what you're looking at when you lose a guy like Jair Alexander. He's an all-pro cornerback. There's not many of them. Yep. He's one of the, if not the best cornerback, just like Davante Adams is one of, if not the best receiver in football. It is what he has done. It has been remarkable. It has gone under the rug. People are just like, it's Aaron Rodgers over the last 6 games. He's got 17 touchdowns and 1 interception. And you're not wrong. He's not wrong. That those people that say that, you're right. But the defense, and I know they haven't really played great teams, but you can't change your schedule. Like, they have to play who's on their schedule, and I understand that Pittsburgh and the Lions and the Niners, maybe Washington, they're not these world beaters, but they're still respectable teams, and they still are in the NFL, and we have to play what's on our schedule. We can't change it. They're going to be tested on Thursday, and it's a short week. It's not probably going to be 100% fair fight, but you're going to see what this team is made of from an aspect of going out there and competing and not just laying down because you're missing literally half your team.
I can tell you this right now. If the Packers find a way to go into Arizona and win that game, there isn't a single human being on this planet that can look me in the face and tell me the Packers aren't the best team in the NFL.
Or that LaFleur doesn't. And you're not wrong. You're right. For the love of God, and I've been saying it, I know you have, and we both agreed. We both said it. Matt LaFleur needs to be in the conversation with Coach of the Year. I don't know. The dude's 13-3 in his first 2 seasons. He hasn't, since he's been a head coach, he doesn't know what an NFC championship. He's been to an NFC championship game every year. He doesn't know what it looks like to not be in one. I get it that he has Aaron Rodgers, but he has transformed. I shouldn't say transformed, but he has repaired Aaron Rodgers that we saw in that or the last few years under McCarthy. And this offense has resurged, obviously, to be one of the best in the league. If he makes a competitive game and possibly wins, even if it's close, I would say, dude, that's there's no such thing as moral victories. That's going to be one, though. You're at a complete disadvantage. You're traveling 5 hours across the country. You're down your top 2 receivers. I guess MBS is your number 2, but I think Lazard's better than MBS.
Lazard is your number 2 right now.
And I agree. Yeah. So you're down your top 2 receivers. You're down your all-pro edge rusher. You're down your all-pro cornerback. Everybody knows the list goes on and on. If the game is even close, if this Packer team gets healthy, like you said, I think they can beat anybody.
And to branch off of what you're saying about Matt LaFleur, it's not just Rodgers that he's impacted. You've seen a completely different vibe with this team than you did with the Mike McCarthy team in the final probably 3-4 years of his career. Just the outside of the week 1 matchup against the Saints, the energy is different. I mean, the chemistry is there. I mean, you didn't see those relationships. You didn't see that energy in the final couple of years of Mike McCarthy's tenure in Green Bay. Honestly, Matt LaFleur has the opportunity to retire as the second best head coach in Green Bay if he continues on the pace that he's on. And if Jordan Love turns into what they think he's going to turn into, he could surpass Mike Holmgren as the second best coach in Packers history. Is that too bold?
I don't know if that's bold. I don't know.
He's got to win a ring, obviously. He's got to win a ring, but he's got the potential
sure does.
To become the second best head coach. I mean, he's young. As long as things keep going his way, he's going to be there a very long time. I mean, you're talking about a Bill Belichick type tenure in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur, as long as things keep going the way he wants to go.
To answer your question, I don't know. Do we see Jordan Love? Hey, did you hear Aaron Rodgers after the Bears game? He doesn't think that's his last time coming there as a Packer playing against the Bears. He also was on the Pat McAfee show Tuesday, and I don't know if you heard the soundbite about Pat McAfee, how much he loves Green Bay and how much fun he's having. If you watch his press game conference or his post game press conferences, he mentioned Whitney Merciless 3 times without being prompted. Yeah, he's loving what. Maybe there's something there. Maybe
he doesn't mention guys like that unless there's a reason too. That's the thing about Rodgers. He only mentions guys like that if there's a reason why.
You could make the argument that maybe we trade him. I don't know, but if Aaron Rodgers wants to be here and he's playing at this level, it's hard to say no. Especially when you don't know what you have in Jordan Love, and eventually Jordan Love's going to want to play. He's going into year 2. So they're going to be hitting, a fork in the road here soon enough.
There's one person that's going to make the difference between Aaron Rodgers staying and Aaron Rodgers leaving. There's one person, and that's Mark Murphy.
It is. Yep.
It's not going to be Gutekunst. It's not going to be Matt LaFleur. We already know that Rodgers loves Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
I mean, the relationship they have is unbreakable. I mean, it's amazing. I don't think he has personal issues with Gutekunst. I think he has personal issues with Mark Murphy.
Yeah.
And that's the one guy that's going to make or break Rodgers staying. So that is yet to be determined. I would absolutely love it if Rodgers finished his career in Green Bay. I mean, that means more Super Bowl chances for us. I don't think there's a Super Bowl chance in the first couple of years of Jordan Love's career. So obviously, I would rather see Rodgers stay. We're going to get to the studs and duds segment of the show before we move on to Arizona. I'm going to start with you because I went first last week. Who is your stud of this game?
When you're looking at this game, and when we talked about it, when we said, who to look out for, I really, really liked the possibility of the running game breaking out this week. And I couldn't have been more wrong, about it. I thought that this would have been
in your
a good
defense.
game.
It was a bold prediction. So
I said AJ Dillon was going to have more rushing yards than Aaron Jones, and AJ Dillon had one of, I think, probably the worst. Actually, I don't think it's even up for discussion. The worst game of his pro career. 3 carries, 2 fumbles.
Yeah,
hard to really get worse than that. So,
and honestly, he's lucky he didn't lose both of them.
He is very lucky.
He lost one of them. He's lucky. Yeah, Lucas Patrick saved him from losing 2 fumbles on 3 carries.
We're doing studs first, right?
Yes.
So my stud's going to be Robert Tonyan. Finally, we see a little bit of what we saw last year morph into what this is this year. And we, 4 receptions, 63 yards. He had the touchdown in the third quarter to go up 2 scores. Kind of looked like his old self. I was impressed with him. I called him out on my article, what to watch for. My exact words were, where is Robert Tonyan? Because we just haven't seen him. I know people are like, well, he's helping the offensive line block. Okay. He's still getting out there and catching the ball and being an effective player in the passing game. So he finally showed up Sunday like I hoped he would. And I'll take 4 catches, 63 yards, and a touchdown every single day out of the tight end.
Man, that touchdown pass was a thing of pure beauty. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Did you hear him talk about it after the game?
Yeah.
So he broke it down, and it was so soothing to me. If you're a football junkie, like, it's just like, like you get the goosebumps and you get all warm and fuzzy. And he said he turned around, and the ball was right there. Like, can't get any better than that.
That was such a beautiful pass too. Just very quickly on Tonyan too, because I know we're going to get into the Arizona side of things. I think you're going to see a lot of Tonyan in the slot outside of the line. So watch out for him to maybe have a big game against the Cardinals. I'm not saying win or lose. I'm just saying watch out for Tonyan to have a big game. My stud is actually not going to be a player. my stud is going to be Joe Barry. I think with all of the defensive woes that they have had with the injuries, the red zone deficiencies that they've had to start the season, to come in and have the 3 turnovers in the red zone that they did, the 2 on downs, the 1 interception, to prevent Washington from putting up more than 10 points. I mean, we've talked about it. In the NFL, 10 points or less is hard to do. It doesn't matter who you're playing. That's hard to do. And Joe Barry had the perfect game plan. As far as the red zone defense is concerned, he had the perfect game plan. Opportunistic defenses win games. And the game that they had on Sunday, and I'm not talking about what they've done this season, but the game they had on Sunday reminded me a lot of the 2010 Packers. Now, I know the 2010 Packers had the number 2 overall defense, but they did something better than any other team in the NFL did that year. They were opportunistic. How many times in 2010 did we see that game-clinching interception or that game-clinching sack or fumble? We saw it a lot in 2010. Mm-hmm. If this is the defense we can look forward to going forward, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and it does have. I think Aaron Rodgers even said it too. Like, it has a feeling of 2010 just because of the injury list, man. I mean, my God, Zadarius Smith has been a weird thing all year. We talked about it before on the show. Shows up with a back injury and nobody really knows what happened. So no, that's a great pick, and Joe Barry is definitely getting some flowers delivered to him as he should this part of the season, man. I mean, my God, dude, like that defense is ravaged. Like they are putting out. And shout out to Rasul Douglas. I thought he actually had a really good game on Sunday.
He did have a good game. He
got called for that BS pass interference, but the NFL referees don't know what pass interference is. But no, I like that one. That's a really good pick. I didn't even think about that. Switching over to the duds side of the ball. I mentioned it with AJ Dillon. I'm going to go with the running backs. And I know that part of it may be Matt LaFleur, who just really didn't give it much of a chance. 9 carries for 25 yards out of your 1-2 punch in the backfield, arguably the best 1-2 punch in football. You can make the argument. 25 yards is not going to cut it. And I know, AJ Dillon had the 3 carries and had the 2 fumbles. Just an awful performance from both of them. And you look at, it's a little bit of a combination of everything. Yes, the running backs didn't play well, but Royce Newman, again, had a suboptimal game. Lucas Patrick, terrible game. So it's a little bit of a combination of both, but I don't think that that can fly, even with, not, elite blocking. You got to get more than 25 yards on the ground, especially against a team that's dead last in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. That's not a bad pick at all. My dud is going to be Lucas Patrick.
Yeah.
He was a turnstile. He was a turnstile on Sunday. He once again looked completely out of place. He looked like he was uncomfortable literally from start to finish of game. He did not appear to have a comfortable snap the whole game. And it was almost to a point where I was questioning if he was dealing with an injury, because I just don't understand. He had a couple good weeks to start the season, and then now all of a sudden it's done a complete 180, and he is playing like absolute garbage. Now I understand that he may not normally be a starter. The offensive line has taken hits just like the defense has, but Lucas Patrick played a terrible game on Sunday. So yeah, he's 100% my dud.
Let me ask you a quick question. This is completely not scripted. We haven't even talked about this for those that are listening. Again, shout out to everybody that's been on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. When Bakhtiari gets back, obviously Josh Myers is on the IR. Do you bring John Runyon Jr. back out to left guard and put Jenkins at center?
Yes.
Because he's been there.
Jenkins filled in at center last year.
Yep.
And was unbelievable at center.
He was really good. That dude, people laugh when I say it. He's a future Hall of Famer. The dude is literally
100%.
a Pro Bowl, all-pro player at any position on the offensive line.
He's one of the few guys in the entire league who can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. And he's probably the only guy who can play all 5 positions effectively and efficiently. I would 100%, if Josh Myers does not come off the short-term IR, if he's not healthy in a couple of weeks, I would 100% put Jenkins at center and let him do his thing, because Jenkins is unbelievable. And he is the future of this offensive line. 100%.
Yeah, you talk about getting paid. He's going to get a pretty penny. It's just a
He's
thought.
He's going to get Bakhtiari money. He's going to get, if not more.
I think he's better. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, Bakhtiari chugs beers at Bucks games and he's cool. He wears number 69. Like, I love him too. He's pictures on my wall. I love him too. Jenkins is that dude, man. Like he is that dude. Like you saw it in the playoffs last year. He got right in Aaron Donald's face. Like he ain't backing down from anybody. He's played every position on this offensive line, and he can do it better than most of all of them, maybe outside of just Bakhtiari.
And shout out to the godfather of the podcast, my dad, John Alberts. I was actually in Green Bay. We were watching the draft when Jenkins got selected. And I'll give my dad credit. He looked at me and said, that guy is going to be good. My dad's got that eye. So he knows.
Dad, you need to start listening to your dad. He knows what he's talking about.
He knows. My dad has the good eye test. So we're going to move on to Arizona. And this is a very, very big question mark. Outside of the defensive injuries that we already have, we've got Jair out. We've got Zadarius out. Preston Smith is injured. And then obviously the offensive line woes. Bakhtiari's not back yet. You've got some new, not injuries, but guys that won't be in the game. We've got Devontae Adams, who is on the COVID list. We've got Alan Lazard, who's on the COVID list. And we've got MVS, who has not yet been cleared to play. We're looking at a game where Aaron Rodgers is going to be without his top 3 targets. And he's looking at Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, Juwan Winfrey, Malik Taylor. What can we possibly expect out of this game on Thursday night?
Well, here's the thing. The Packers, they've won 5 of their last 7 games on Thursday night. So that bodes well. They have a, historically, I guess, success on Thursday night. There's not an NFL quarterback, current or past, I don't remember when Thursday Night Football started, that has a higher passer rating than Aaron Rodgers on Thursday night. So that's interesting. But then you sprinkle in his weapons. He's 6-0 with Devontae Adams. We know that. We know, what that means. But, is that because of who they're playing? I don't know if they've ran into an opponent like the Arizona Cardinals. And let me just set the record straight. I don't think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be, I don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I know they're undefeated. They should have lost to Minnesota. They should have probably lost to Cleveland. Like, they've had these games on their record, on their schedule that they probably should have lost, and they've won. And credit to them. They're great. They're great. They're a good team. They got weapons all over the field. But Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback. When you look at him, if you point to anybody in the NFL over Mahomes, maybe outside of just Brady, I'll take Aaron Rodgers with a bunch of JV high school, football players. I think he puts together a pretty good night. I think you're going to see what we're accustomed to under the Matt LaFleur offense. Spread that ball out. That ball's out within 2 seconds. You're going to see, this is a guess, in my opinion, you're going to see a ton of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, whether it be out of the backfield running the ball or out of the backfield catching the ball. And I really am hoping at some point this season we see both of them on the field together. And
yes.
What better night to do it than tomorrow when you don't have your all-pro receiver, best receiver
what's
football.
The package that I've been begging for all season? Do you remember what it is?
I don't.
DeGuara, Tanyan, Dillon, Jones, the big boy package.
See, and this is the other thing that's got me thinking, and it's kind of stupid, but I'm going to say it. That's got me thinking the Packers are going to win. My heart's speaking before my head, of course. But Aaron Rodgers had a sly look on his face, a little smirk, and he said, they got to be ready for our bags of tricks as well. Something's going to happen on Thursday night. We're going to see something we may have not seen before, because why not? Use this week. The Packers are obviously depleted on both sides of the ball. Maybe there's something that they got, cooked up their sleeves that they've been waiting for. Maybe it's the Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combination with DeGuara and Tanyan and sprinkling Cobb. And I'm hoping, I know we've talked about this, together, Amari Rodgers has eventually got to get some time. He's got to get some snaps.
Yes,
I just think he's just buried right now. Like, I don't think it's anything he's doing necessarily. He's buried on the depth chart. Obviously, the addition of Randall Cobb just buried him a little bit more. So I think what you're going to see is, look, what's there to lose, really? I mean, when you look at it, if you lose this football game, every talking head will say, well, you should have. Like, you're on the road. You just played 3 days ago and you're out. Your 5 of your best 8 players are out. So you probably should lose. But if you don't, and the reason that you do win this game is going to be because they do something, they get more creative and they get a little bit more dynamic within the offense. And we stop seeing Aaron Rodgers hold on to the ball for 3+ seconds.
Let's get down to brass tacks when it comes to this game. The number one reason why they win this game is going to be because you see an absolute dominant performance by Aaron Rodgers. That's an obvious, right? I mean, he's going to have to come out, throw for 300 yards, have 3 or 4 touchdowns, even with the supporting cast that he has. That's an obvious. So we're going to push that one off to the side. The next step down, 1B, if they win this game, it's going to be because of the offensive line. You're going to have to give Rodgers time, and you're going to have to create plays for the running game. This is a team that gives up 115 yards per game on the ground. I mean, I think they're mid-tier. I think they're about 18th or 19th. The offensive line is going to have the best game of the season in order to give this offense a chance to put points on the board. That's the number 2. The wild card is you're going to have a big game out of I don't want to call him a nobody, but I'll say a guy that's not a household name, an Amari Rodgers, a Juwan Winfrey, a Malik Taylor. You're going to have a big game out of one of those guys in order to compete and have a chance in this game. I would like to see Tanyan get involved a little bit more, and I think he does. I think you see another 60, 70-yard performance out of Tanyan, but you're going to have to see a 120-yard performance out of either Winfrey or Taylor, maybe even Amari Rodgers. I don't think Cobb is in a position anymore where he's going to put up 10 catches for 140 yards and a couple touchdowns. He's not that guy anymore. So aside from the MVP performance you have to have out of Rodgers, I think the offensive line is the X factor in this game. With the injuries, I understand that, but they absolutely have to have the cleanest game imaginable in order for them to win.
Well, not only that, J.J. Watt's out with a mysterious shoulder injury that I don't remember ever seeing him on the injury list. I could be mistaken.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't. Whatever. He leads them in quarterback pressures. J.J. Watt does. That's a big loss for this Arizona Cardinals defense that isn't always that great anyway. We talk about a defense that gives up 135 yards on the ground. I mean, that is a recipe for Matt LaFleur to be licking his chops like, okay, here we go. 25 carries, Aaron Jones, 15, 17 carries, A.J. Dillon. Sprinkle some Kylan Hill in there. The way you set an offensive line up for success, and I'm not teaching you, Rhino, anything, or maybe any of our viewers or listeners, I'm just speaking out in the open. Establish the run. When you got guys like Royce Newman, Lucas Patrick, when Josh Myers is in there, these guys, when they're pass blocking 30 times a game, and last week it was 33 times a game, they're not able to establish themselves and dictate the flow of the game and in the trenches. And the way you do that and the way you fix that, in my opinion, is running the ball. Let these guys get off on the snap, make that first step instead of dropping back and passing the ball 33 times. Establish the run. That's the biggest thing I can stress going into this game. This Arizona Cardinals defense is not good on the ground. They're horrible. I know I mentioned it before, but Cleveland ran all over him. Minnesota ran all over him. Los Angeles Rams. They had over 200 yards on the ground. And the reason they lost that game was because they had 5 turnovers. So obviously limit your turnovers, run the football. It's a beatable team. I just don't know, going into it there's just always the injury factor. And I know I hate that, everybody is dealing with stuff. Obviously JJ Watt's out, but for us, it's just been, okay, how long can this go on? Because we are down to our 4th and 5th string cornerbacks on the defensive side of the ball.
And wide receivers.
Like, how much longer can this go? And again, shout out to my man, Brian Gutekunst, because, not saying without him, but, LaFleur plays a part in it and Aaron Rodgers plays a part into it. Obviously, the whole coaching staff, that dude's got depth, every position imaginable there is depth, and that's proven throughout the first 7 games of the season.
And the reason why I mentioned the offensive line is because of that, because they're down to their 4th, 5th, 6th string wide receivers. You're not going to have that guy that's going to get that instant separation like an MVS would or a Devontae Adams would. They're going to have to give Aaron Rodgers time to find that open guy. I don't think you see the 2-second release that you did in the San Francisco game with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be holding on to the ball a little bit longer because he's going to have to find the open guy and have to make that play. So, I think the offensive line is the X factor of this game, but I guess that's yet to be determined. The defensive side of the ball is what scares me because you are looking at a quarterback in Kyler Murray, who right now, in my eyes, is a top 3 MVP quarterback candidate.
Yep.
I was looking at the stats. He's 5th in yards. He's 1st in completion percentage. He's 4th in touchdowns, and he's 2nd in rating. And the one thing about Kyler Murray's game that has really excelled after his first 2 years in the league, and it reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson, he is not a run-first quarterback anymore. He is not you see a little bit of pressure and all of a sudden, boom, he's out of the pocket. He has established himself as one of the league's premier pocket passing quarterbacks. He only has 127 yards rushing on the season through almost half of the season. And if you remember last year, he was on pace for 1,000 yards rushing up until probably the final 3 weeks of the year. He's really taken that next step from being, now he does still have that dual threat. He does still have the legs, but he has really propelled himself into being one of the league's premier pocket passers. And when you have options like, DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green, he's probably the guy I worry about the most going into this game on defense.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We saw it last week against Taylor. Heineke ran for 95 yards. If he's running for 95 yards, I would be really scared what Kyler Murray can do against that defense. Now, my assumption is that, with Jerry Gray calling the plays, and obviously Joe Barry's been inside the game planning and obviously over Zoom and stuff like that. My assumption is you're going to see, there's Arizona Cardinals are 7th in the NFL in explosive play rate, so they thrive off of the deep plays. If they aren't successful with the deep plays, they struggle to score. The key for Green Bay, in my opinion, is getting them to get on these 10 plus play drives, force them to move the ball and not get a chunk play of 55 yards to Christian Kirk or DeAndre Hopkins if he plays. Limit the big plays. And my assumption is you're going to see a lot of shell defense, a lot of cover 2, probably a lot of zone. And then possibly, if there's ever been a week for Jalen Smith to be here, does he spy Kyler Murray on the defensive side of the ball? You got to assume that they're going to need Rashawn Gary to get into the quarterback with his 10 pressures that he had last week. That would have been a guy that I should have probably put as a stud, and I somehow slipped my brain.
Hit a monster game.
2 sacks, forced fumble, and 10 pressures, the most of his career. He's obviously going to be needed in how they play Kyler Murray. But the thing about that scares me with Kyler Murray and Rashawn Gary is Rashawn Gary gets there, but he doesn't always get home. And when you flush Kyler Murray out of the pocket, that's when he becomes like, I don't want to say Aaron Rodgers but he becomes really, really dangerous because the defense doesn't know what he's going to do because he's like Russell Wilson. He can take off and run for 25 yards, or he can drop a dime 50 yards on a spot. So that's the tough part with defending and getting after Kyler Murray. But you're absolutely right. The dude's right there. Maybe Tom Brady is playing, maybe the only other quarterback that's playing better than him throughout the whole year. Aaron Rodgers is playing really good, but Kyler Murray is the real deal.
I would almost like to see Jalen Smith play as like a QB spy, somebody that you put on Kyler Murray if he does get outside of the pocket, if he does break the pocket and get outside. Jalen Smith has the speed to keep up with Kyler Murray and hopefully make a tackle. The one play that I was actually extremely impressed with Jalen in that Washington game, I believe it was on the touchdown pass, the opening drive, where he just shot right through the offensive line, almost right there in the backfield, but I believe it was Gibson made a phenomenal block on him.
Yep.
But Jalen should have made that sack. Just a great block by the running back. But I would almost like to see Jalen play a little bit of a QB spy. He's right there with Kyler every step of the way. And hopefully Rashawn Gary isn't breaking that contain on the outside and over pursuing. And, he makes a couple plays in the backfield as well. But outside of Kyler Murray, My biggest concern is DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's probably second behind Devontae Adams in terms of the best wide receivers in the NFL. This is a guy that not only has the speed to run deep, but he does have the route running that's right there behind Devontae Adams as well. And he's got the hands. I would almost put his hands above Devontae Adams in terms of the best in the NFL. What do you think about DeAndre Hopkins and who we have to cover him?
Well, and that's when it comes to speed. I feel comfortable with Eric Stokes on DeAndre Hopkins. Where DeAndre Hopkins gets people, he's deadly in the red zone. You know, he's got the 6'5" frame, the long torso, long arms. Like he's tough. You know, we see it a lot when he was down in Houston and obviously now in Arizona. I don't think, you know, step for step, he's faster than Eric Stokes. I don't think there's many receivers that are, to be quite honest. I mean, 4.2, 4.27, I think is what Eric Stokes was at his pro day. You know, he's got the speed. So I feel pretty good. And I'll be honest with you. I think we have the best the best safety tandem in the NFL, and Amos and Savage. And we saw Maryland Savage come out against Washington with that pass breakup. Should have had the fumble like I talked about. But we saw the playmaking out of Savage.
His best game of the year.
I think so too. Yeah. I think if those two come to play, I think they'll be fine. Where they get beat, it seems to be, is just on the plays that we saw it against Cincinnati. It's like, you know, scrambling quarterback, rolling out. The defense can only cover for so long. Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase for a play that looked like it should have been batted down. But I think as far as the coverage goes, I think they're going to be okay. And I would not be surprised one bit to see the shell cover, you know, cover two defense with the safeties that I just talked about.
Let's get into the bold prediction portion of our show before we get into the score prediction. I'm going to start us off with a crazy bold prediction, and this might even take you by surprise. I think Kylan Hill has 100 yards of offense and a touchdown in this game. I look for him to be used more so in the passing game. I think they're going to use him a lot in the screen. I think you might even see Kylan Hill out wide a little bit. He might sprinkle in about 20, 30 yards of rushing, but I see him having maybe 70, 80 yards receiving in this game and a touchdown. I think Kylan Hill has a big game for the Packers on Thursday.
That's bold. That's bold. Yeah, when you look at bold predictions, it's, you know, I could say Tunyon's going to be the leading receiver. Is that really bold? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Because he probably should be as far as who's on the team. I don't know if this is bold. Maybe it's not, but it's just a hunch. Amari Rodgers has finally a breakout game of his career.
Now that's bold. That's bold.
And a guy that has not seen many snaps, has not seen many balls. Although the one he did catch a couple weeks ago looked like Amari Rodgers out of Clemson when he caught that swing screen out of the backfield for like 20-something yards. That was the Amari Rodgers that we used to see in Clemson. And I agree. I think we get a touchdown here for Amari Rodgers. I'm going to go with 5 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. And I think we see what we all thought we were going to see when he came out of Clemson. A gadget type guy. Maybe he does some jet sweeps. Maybe he does, you know, something where he utilizes that speed. He's no slouch either. He's 4.3, 4.4 guy. He can also be a difference maker. And so many people have compared him to Randall Cobb. And hopefully we see that.
And then on my defensive side of the bold prediction, this one's going to be out there too. I think they turn over Kyler Murray 3 times in this game, whether it's a combination of a couple picks and a fumble, 3 picks, couple fumbles, what have you. I think they turn over Kyler Murray 3 times in this game, and he has one of the worst games of his season so far.
Well, if that's the case, that's an easy win. I mean,
that's a win. That should be a win. If they get 3 turnovers out of Kyler, that's a win.
I mean, they're no slouch with the running game either, though. I mean, Chase Edmonds is good. I mean, they got Zach Ertz was their leading receiver last week, and he just
it's another guy that we need to be careful with because you've said it 100 times. Tight ends burn Green Bay.
And mobile quarterbacks, for the most part, burn Green Bay, and that's always been an Achilles heel for this defense. And Shadid said it was 27 yards. I am good. I remember that play. It was smooth. It was real smooth.
What is your defensive bold prediction?
My defensive bold prediction. Did you go a defensive bold prediction? You did.
Yeah, I
right?
said I think we pick up. We turn
That's
over
right.
Kyler 3 times. Yep.
My defensive bold prediction. And it's not. Again, it's kind of bold, but it's not. I think you see another good performance out of Rasul Douglas. That's not my pick. I like him a lot. I think Devondre Campbell has the career night. If you remember what team cut him and where he's playing on Thursday.
And we had somebody say that in the chat earlier too.
I'm sure we did. Yeah.
Right here.
He's in for
Shadid said it. The Cards made a mistake letting go of Devondre Campbell. Yep.
And I think the chip is big on his shoulder. The 28-year-old linebacker that was let go for the first round pick in Xavier Collins this year after the draft. I think Devondre Campbell. And if you're right, and your bold prediction is talking about 3+ turnovers, Devondre Campbell's going to have one, and he's going to be absolutely disruptive in every phase of the game, running, passing, and I think you're going to see a 15 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, maybe 1 forced fumble. He's going to have an impact on that defense to where we look back, and right now he's again for the second week in a row. PFF's Pro Football Focus is #1 linebacker in all of football, inside linebacker in all of football. And I think he has a big night. I even think he's going to have a sack.
He's really having like a Ray Lewis type effect on this defense. Now, before I get torn apart in my mentions, I'm not saying that he is Ray Lewis. What I'm saying is Ray Lewis was the heart and soul of those Ravens defenses, especially the ones that won the Super Bowl. It started and ended with Ray Lewis. And so far through the season, the defense has started and ended with Devondre Campbell. That's the kind of impact he's having on this team. We're going to get into the game prediction portion of the show, and then we're gonna cut you guys off for the evening. I know I said to you pre-show that I want to predict my first L. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm going Packers win close 27-26.
Oh, that's close. That's
27-26.
I don't know. I love the Packers. If people are watching, you can see behind me. I love this team as much as I love my children, but I just, and it's nothing against the Green Bay Packers. It's nothing against I like that score. That one reminds me, Shadid's right there reminds me a lot of the 2009 playoff game, 45-51 loss. That's a lot of
the
scoring.
one where Rodgers got his face mask ripped off to end the game. Yeah.
So this is tough, man. I want to pick Green Bay so bad, and I know if they lose, I'll come back on your next week and I'll eat crow for a little bit. I'll gladly eat crow. But I just don't see it, man. I don't. I think this is a mini bye week for the Green Bay Packers. Garrett's also on Green Bay. I guess I'm the only one so far that's not. And real quick, Garrett, Shadid, thank you guys for dropping your predictions.
Thank you so much,
If you guys come on and drop predictions and you drop comments, we will get them on. We will read them. We will interact with you guys. So it's so much appreciated. Thank you guys so much. I'm still trying to debate it in my head. I want to say Green Bay so bad. I know I'm dragging this on.
Be optimistic for me, please. Just for
I'm never.
1 week,
I can't be. I can't.
I know you're not optimistic. I know you. You're my friend outside of the show. I've gone to games with you.
Yeah, I know. I gotta go with Arizona. It's gonna be. I'm gonna go 21-20. I'm sorry, 27-23. The Cardinals score late in the fourth quarter. And take off with the victory. And I think that's okay. I think if the Packers go in there and play a competitive game, I know I've said it before, there's no such thing as moral victories, but I think this week there is. If you go in there and you get mollywopped 45-0, that sucks. But if you go in there and you fight and it's a 1-score game into the end of the game, that's a good loss. And I know there's no such thing as that. There's nothing in the win-loss category that says this is a good loss, this is a bad loss. They all count the same, but you are depleted, man, in so many ways. I just don't know if they can overcome it this week on a short week against a really good undefeated team, the only undefeated team.
I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. If they were to lose 27-21 with all of the injuries that they have, I can't be mad at that. I mean, that's a tough game against a tough opponent on the road. You're missing 5 or 6 of your top 8 players. I mean, honestly, you can make the argument the only player on that list that they're not missing is Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, it is.
So
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, there's 4 other All-Pro guys on there: Devontae Adams, David Bakhtiari, Zadarius Smith, and Jair Alexander. Those All-Pro last year.
Yeah. So no, I 100% agree with you, but I do have them inching out just the closest of games, and I hope I'm correct, and I hope you're wrong, so I can make fun of you to your face next week.
I would love to be made fun of. If there's any time that I would be okay with bullying, this would be it. Bully me after the Packers win. I would love it. I would invite it. I just as a fan, I just don't know, man. I don't know if I see it. It's just there's a lot to overcome.
Fair enough. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Titletown Lounge. That is going to do it for us this evening. Shadid, Garrett, my dad, John, all the rest of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Wow, excuse me. Once again, you can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. Brandon to my right, you can find him on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. And then the Twitter page for the Titletown Lounge podcast at Titletown Lounge. Go, Pack, go.
Hey, don't forget. Bucks game after this. Go Bucks, baby. Champions.
Go Bucks, baby.
There's Bledsoe. Down he goes.
And there's Reggie White. And that's that hump.
Low to the shotgun. 3 receivers left, 2 to the right. Snap to Rodgers. Scrambles to his left. Under pressure. Rolling right. Escapes. Right side looking. Rainbows high and deep. Into the end zone. And it is caught. Caught for a touchdown. A leaping touchdown catch is made, and the Packers have won. He is slick in the pocket, and then once he looked across the field, oh my gosh, that's from the 35. That's 60. That's close to 70 yards, but it's how high it went is what's so impressive.
Rodgers to Rodgers. 2 guys from Cal connect.
You talk about a season-saving game.